Welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for taking the time to spend a little time with me. I always appreciate that. And before we get started with the video, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, cut on your notifications, and hit that like button. Now, stay tuned for your feature presentation. All right, so let's unpack this Le'Veon Bell situation a little bit. The question is he being made out to be the villain? That's a very good question, right? So I'm going to go ahead and address it the best way I can, and hopefully you guys will share your comments and let me know how you feel. Now, the answer to that question, in my opinion, is yes. But I don't fault Le'Veon Bell, and let me explain the situation. Now, last night, man, I did my Sim Standard podcast along with my buddy Smitty. We had a lot of people comment on this situation. We talked about it briefly. And shouts out to my boy Dez. You know, he knows who he is. He made some great comments. You know, he basically said, how come, we have to go with the status quo? Why can't all positions make the same type of money a quarterback would make? And I definitely agree. But let me explain what I meant when I said that, it's the game that he plays. And what I meant by that is you have to understand the climate around you. I definitely get setting the new standard, which I think he still would if he takes the deal that the Pittsburgh Steelers are offering him. The deal that they offered him last year was $13 million per year. It's rumored right now that they're offering a little more than that, maybe 14, maybe up to 15, but he wants $17 million. Now, here's the reason why I say you got to recognize the climate that you're in. If you take that 13, 14, or 15, that sets the new standard right there. So then it allows the next running back coming behind you to use that as a measuring stick and say, well, I want 16. It could possibly, at that case, be possible. If the Steelers pay Le'Veon Bell 14 to 15 million per year, then maybe when Todd Gurley is up for his contract renegotiation, he could say, well, I want that or 16, and so forth and so forth. So in that case, you set the new standard. Where I think Le'Veon Bell is playing with, shaky ground a little bit, or, playing with fire, is going from what the current market is now all the way up to 17 is going to be tough, because that's just the climate of the NFL. Do I think he's worth it? I do. I think he is well worth $17 million, roughly what Antonio Brown is making per year. Could we not say that Le'Veon Bell is as much a part of the offense as Antonio Brown? I know people are going to argue who's more important. I think they're both important. When Le'Veon Bell is healthy and on the field, this dude, it brings so much to the table. Just look at things that he did in the Jacksonville game as far as the catching. That was great coverage by Tevin Smith, and Le'Veon Bell is able to make a tough catch and one-on-one coverage in the end zone. Little things like that. You don't see that from every running back. What he does with his checkdowns. He's just phenomenal with the ball in his hands. He's great running the football. He's not a home run hitter. I definitely will say that. He's not a speedster. You don't really see explosive runs from Le'Veon Bell as far as your 50-yard touchdowns. Look on the other side of the team. When I just said Jacksonville and the Steelers, look at a guy like Leonard Fournette. Fournette is a big boy, but he can hit that home run for you like he did against the Steelers in the first meeting, 90 yards or so. You're not going to get that from Le'Veon Bell, but what you are going to get from him is consistent, positive gains for the most part, and, decent chunk plays. 10 yards, 12 yards, 15, maybe 20. But again, what he does in the pass game, come on, man. How many times he touches the ball? This guy has been averaging 350 or more as far as touches the last couple seasons. Yes, I would say he's worth it, but unfortunately, he's a running back, and running backs right now, they just don't have that type of value on them, monetarily. Now, has he painted himself as a villain? I think so, because the villain part of it is the way the fans see it. And you're talking about Pittsburgh, man. A rough and tough town, blue-collar, hard-nosed town, and the average fan from Pittsburgh will look at it like, just take the money. If somebody offered you $13 million a year, would you take it? $14 million, $15 million. You got $12.5 last year. on the franchise tag, and if he continues on the tag this year, he'll get 14.5. So that's why, yes, I think he has painted himself as a villain, but I think he definitely needs to just let it be at this point. I think he shouldn't say too much. I think continuing to talk about it publicly is where the villain part of it is coming into play. I think if he just lets negotiations play out with his agent and the Steelers, just let whatever happens, and you don't say that much. You go ahead and come in, this season, whether you have a long-term deal or not. Let's just say he doesn't play on the tag, do good for the Steelers, and the Steeler fan base loves you all the same. Maybe in that case they look at the Steelers and say, hey, we should have paid this guy. You see what I'm saying? But I think by continuing to talk about it and engaging in social media, I understand what he's trying to do, but that's where the villain part of it is coming into play, because the average fan is like, come on, man, how much money do you want? The average fan is saying, I don't know if we should give you the same amount of money as Antonio Brown. Where me, being a huge fan, I would say a little more than average, only because I break down things a little differently than I guess your average fan, as far as looking at the financials and things like that. And the number one thing that we cannot lose in this argument is we can't lose sight of the cap. That's the problem. We have to consider cap space and where any team, not just the Steelers, where they want to invest their cap space over the next X amount of years. Long-term deal and such, and how much impact that, that player would have on the cap. You look at a guy like Roethlisberger, which I'm assuming, if I'm not mistaken, his cap number is still 20 million or more, to hit every season. So that is really what comes into play with these negotiations in the NFL. Hopefully when the next CBA is up, I would love to see more, all positions being valued, particularly the running back, because I think the running back now is coming back into the fold. You look at what a lot of these guys have done in the last couple years, some of the veterans and some of these rookies, the running back position has proven itself to still be valuable. People may not put the same value on it as your top receiver or your quarterback, but you cannot tell me that a guy like Le'Veon Bell doesn't pose as much of a threat when he's on the field as an Antonio Brown or any other player on the field. So I think it's coming back around to where the running backs are going to get their just due. But at the same time, man, and I hate to say it, but it's definitely going to be a baby step process. It's going to be hard going from 8.9, which I believe Shady McCoy is making right now, or Dante Freeman, one of those guys. I can't remember which one has that deal, but they're the next highest paid guy, which is roughly 8.9, 9 million or what have you. To go from 9 million to 17 million is going to be very tough. It's going to be very tough. So if the Steelers were willing to pay you, reportedly this season they're offering him roughly around 15 a year. I think you still would be doing good by setting the standard by getting that much. So in my opinion, man, yeah, that's why I think that he is being painted as the villain. Can't deny that, but I just think he needs to just be quiet. Stop talking about it and just let things play out. Maybe a deal gets done, maybe it doesn't, but the more you engage and the more you make it seem like it's about the money to the average fan, then yeah, you're going to be painted as the villain. I understand exactly what he's trying to do. Don't get me wrong. I am not slighting Le'Veon Bell at all. I'm actually in favor for what he's trying to do. He is worth, in my opinion, that much money in terms of what he does for the team. People are going to argue the worth, based on, even like I said last night, from a business standpoint, you got to consider his suspensions. You got to consider how many years he's played a whole 16 game season. All of that stuff comes into play, but it's really about the cap space. Can't lose sight of the cap space, and that's why I think it's going to be extremely tough for him to be signed by the Steelers long term, as well as possibly any other team. Because if he plays on the tag this year, he's 27 next year. And what team or how many teams are going to offer $17 million per year to a 27-year-old back? You're looking at quote unquote 30 being the time when backs decline. You basically at that point looking at 2-3 more years of great production. So it's a tough situation, man. I'm rooting for him. Hopefully the Steelers can get something done with him. He's a great running back. Regardless of what people may think about him, I feel like the guy is a great player. His durability has shown as far as the load that he carries. Yes, he's been injured, but come on, man. A guy that's carrying the ball or touching the ball 400 times, you got to tip your hat to that guy, and he is very productive. So I hope they can make something work. If not, I wish him the best, but my advice is to let it play out. Don't keep engaging with the fans when it comes to this contract, because a lot of average people who are just sitting on their couch, they can't relate to turning down $13, $14, $15 million a year. Okay? So that's just my opinion. Yes, he's being painted out as a villain, and basically I outlined the reasons why I think that is. Alright, so that's going to do it, man. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, cut on your notifications, hit that like button, and let me know what you think. Alright, that's going to do it for now, but of course, we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.